Now, why would anyone spend $15,000 on a passion project, on a spec project? It sounds a little over the top. A spec project is a high risk, high reward, non-guaranteed venture. You self-fund, you do all the work, the pre-production, the production, the post-production, the casting, the locations, the gear, the crew, the equipment. Everything that goes into the project is done by yourself or by yourself and your team or your peers in lieu of trying to show your potential of what you're capable of to land future jobs. Now, I've built my career off spec projects. Like, if I didn't do spec projects or passion projects, I would not be where I'm at today. I would not be making the money that I'm making, and I wouldn't have the clients that I have. You have to show proof of concept. You have to show that you can do the work before you get hired for it. So one of the big motivations for me for this project was I just wasn't getting hired for the type of work that I wanted to get hired for at the time, and I knew I was capable of more, and I knew I was capable of directing a car commercial with a great story, but nobody was gonna hire me because I've never done that before. So the idea was to take my own money, my own idea, invest it into a project to where then I had something in my portfolio to show people what I was capable of. I knew where I wanted to go, and I was the only person that was in control of my destiny to be able to make it happen. So I created a Ford Bronco commercial. At the time, the Bronco was coming out. It was the newest, hottest car on the market. I wanted one myself. I also was watching a lot of Taylor Sheridan. I was watching Yellowstone, 1883, and I was just hooked and immersed in this cowboy and horse Western era. So at the time, I had gotten brought on to direct some low budget TV commercials for a Ford dealership out of Phoenix. Now, these weren't super sexy. These were just people walking around in the dealership, people working on cars, but I knew that they wanted to do some more work. So I pitched the idea to the agency, and the agency loved it, thought it was a great idea, and they took it to the dealership. Now, the dealership loved the idea, but they were only willing to come up with $15,000 of their own money for this commercial. And I knew that $15,000 was not going to be enough. Had the number in my head of $15,000 on top of that to be able to have $30,000 to make this commercial, which is what I thought we needed to pull it off on spec. Some people will get mad and say, why did you put $15,000 of your own money into a client project where, you know, you're teaching them a bad habit? Where why would you pay for the Ford dealership's, you know, commercial? Well, if it was up to them, they would have spent $15,000. We would have done something that was not shareable, not able to go on my reel, not able to go on my portfolio, and I wouldn't have been proud of the project. But instead, now I have something that has been a massive catalyst and catapult in my career. Now, I know everyone doesn't have $15,000 or access to a $30,000 spec project, and that's okay. I've done plenty of spec projects since then, and I had spent a fraction of the cost and created some absolutely incredible commercials. It's about not talking about how great you are or what your potential is or what you're capable of. It's about doing. It's about action. So the very first step was to flesh out the idea and build a pitch deck. So I started to put ideas onto paper and kind of get a vision of what I wanted to do. But the problem was, when you're doing spec work, you have to sell people on this grand idea, and people are not going to get paid. They're not going to, you know, make very much money. That's spec. So you have to sell them on this vision and tell them what's in it for them, and that it's going to be this amazing experience and this awesome project. The pitch deck is how you do that. The pitch deck was by far the single most important thing that I did within this project, because without that, I wouldn't have had anybody to help me on this project. And it takes a team, it takes an army. You can't pull off this level of production by yourself. You need people. And I was very blessed to have an amazing group of friends and people around me that saw the vision, they got it, they wanted to be on board, and they donated a lot of their time and energy into the project. But they wouldn't have done that if they didn't see an amazing pitch deck. It basically lays out the tone, the story, the characters, where we would shoot, and what would it entail, the music that we're gonna hear throughout this commercial. And when I sent this to people, the reaction was great. People loved it. They were like, wow, yes, please, how can I be a part of this? Get me on board. And that was a great feeling. And again, without the pitch deck of showing people what was in my mind, they would have never came on board. The idea for the commercial really was that. It was just an idea until I made the pitch deck. When I made that pitch deck, it became reality. It became real. People were like, oh, he's serious. He has a plan. He knows where we're shooting. He knows the type of characters. He knows the story. There's the shot list. That's when I really started to have momentum for the project. What are the risks? I mean, we could have failed. It could have been an absolute disaster. It could have not worked. Something could have gone wrong with production, or I had a horrible vision and the project just didn't come together in post-production, and it could have not been as good as what I sold people on. And then I would have felt like a disappointment to everybody who I brought onto the project. It is a lot of money to risk, but I think if you want to level up in your career, it's going to take risk. It's going to take getting uncomfortable and getting out of your comfort zone and doing things that scare the hell out of you. I mean, I didn't sleep for days for this project. I was so nervous and excited, and honestly, let's be real, I didn't know what I was doing. Like, I knew I was capable of it, but it's kind of like the thing where you jump out of the airplane and you build your parachute on the way down. I'm not gonna sit here and try to tell you that I was so confident in every aspect of what we were doing. Guys, you gotta bet on yourself. I didn't go to film school, so me spending $15,000 of my own money on this project was kind of like me going to school and learning how to shoot a car commercial. I grew massively creatively through this process, and I think it changed the way that I pitch projects. I pitch on projects as a director. It changed the way that I approach things, and it completely transformed me as a creative. Now, why is the investment worth it? Now I had this amazing project that I was able to share, send people, put in my portfolio, put on my website. Also submitted it into a film festival called the Motor Film Awards, which is a big automotive film festival. And we actually got nominated for Best Promotional Film, which is incredible. Some of the other people and projects in that category were mind-blowing. Now it was much easier to sell clients on what I was capable. They didn't have to hear about what I could do, they could see what I could do. The great thing about spec projects is there is no client telling you to change that part in the script, cut that shot, cut it down shorter. There's no feedback. You are creating something purely from within yourself, and you have completely creative control to make a project that represents you and what you want, your taste. So what happened after the project released? Did I get more jobs? Did I level up? Did I make more money? And the answer is yes. About a year after the project was released, I got a phone call from a production company who was involved in the Bronco project, and they asked me to direct projects for Motor Trend. I made my money back by a long shot. I was also able to bring some of the people who worked and donated their time on that project onto those shoots, which felt incredible. Also, this project is by far the most talked about thing on my portfolio. When people see my portfolio, they go to my website, this is the #1 thing they bring up. And it may not be direct money into my pocket, but when they see this project, they know I'm a serious filmmaker, they know what I'm capable of, and they're a little more comfortable spending money or bringing me onto their project. I just want to encourage you guys, even if you've got $500 on a spec project, go do it. If you have $0 on a spec project, go do it. You don't need money to create amazing things. I'll link some of my other projects that I did on spec that I didn't spend any money on, or I spent very little money on. It's possible, you just need to take the first step. Don't be the person who just always talks about ideas, or we could do this, or we should do this, or I could do this, and why'd that person get that opportunity? I'm more capable, or I'm more talented. It's about not talking and doing. I highly recommend taking action, getting out there with your friends, and creating spec projects. Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget, like and subscribe.